So is your microphone on?
Yes.
Great. It's good to be here. It's good to see you tonight. We've done this last year.
Yes.
We were at Stanford University. For those of you who don't know, we were brought together at Stanford University last year for this very same occasion by the NAACP at Stanford. The students have an NAACP at Stanford, and they wanted to talk about the 100th anniversary of the NAACP, which coincided with 100 days of Barack Obama's presidency. And so now we have a full year to assess his presidency. Even up till today, you told me you were on CNN talking about the healthcare forum this morning. But before we get into the political and stuff, I sort of wanted to talk about the person and your experiences growing up in Louisiana. And you know, I was thinking about how kids sort of open us up in this conversation. I thought about this artist named Marlon Riggs, who directed this film called Black is Black Ink. And he was on the verge of dying of AIDS. And as he was dying, he wanted to record his life, and there was this whole question about identity, sexuality, complexion, and he used this notion of gumbo as a metaphor for the range of black people, from the Geechee to the Creole, the whole range of colors and mixtures, and how bringing all of that together sort of was a metaphor for bringing people together, to sitting down, to having conversation. And I just thought a kind of fun question would be to ask you, given that you love to cook, and all the magic you put in your gumbo, he suggests that we all are some kind of ingredient in gumbo. And if you sort of have to identify what ingredient you are in gumbo, the ingredient you put in your gumbo, what ingredient do you see yourself as in terms of contributing to community or to your party or to your family? Because you come from a very large family, so I wanted you to talk about that.
Well, first of all, it's a great honor to be here on this wonderful historic campus on a very important day. For those of you who got up early enough to see President Obama convene the historic summit at the Blair House, you know how important this day is in American politics. And regardless of your personal views about healthcare reform, which we'll get to, I'm sure, today was an opportunity for President Obama to really, once again, lay out why this is an important priority. And when I arrived last night, my assumption was that I would spend most of the day visiting this important city, but instead I was on with Wolf Blitzer and a few of the other members of the best political team in American politics. I'm glad to be with you all tonight, and unfortunately Anderson, my boo, will not get a chance to see me. It's also very exciting to be here on this, the second to the last day of Black History Month. What an exciting, incredible month. And for many of you who are familiar with those of us from the great city of New Orleans, this has been an incredible month because my hometown team, the New Orleans
Who that?
Now, gumbo. Let's set the stage for those of you who don't cook. It is perhaps a rite of passage for a young person, male or female, to learn how to cook gumbo. This is not an ordinary soup. This is not something that can be purchased in a can. This is something that is perhaps one of the most important recipes that your mother or grandmother or grandfather or father will pass on to you. And cooking gumbo, Dr. Taylor, is so important that in the aftermath of Katrina, my dad didn't care to get the rocking chair back, the artwork back. He wanted the gumbo pot. And sure enough, I had to get a gumbo pot from my dad. Now, when you think about how you make it, you have to find the largest pot in the kitchen. For those of you who want to learn how to stir things up, don't get no small saucepan. A saucy dish. This is about stirring in good times and bad times. Whenever I make gumbo, I don't just make it because I feel like making gumbo. I am in the mood to make gumbo. I want something cold to drink right by my stove because you know it's going to get hot. And I consider myself to be a little pinch of Tabasco. I try not to invite anybody over that is allergic to something. But I found that if you get gumbo early and often, you will not ever get sick. It's because the old folks taught you that a good recipe requires you to cook with fresh ingredients. And so when you think about gumbo, and it's a spiritual thing, it is a dish that brings together so many complicated ingredients. And yet when it comes together, when you make that roux, when you put the Holy Trinity, you know what I mean by Holy Trinity? Yes.
No. Those are from New York and California.
Well, a good onion, some garlic, and pepper. Now you always keep your parsley and your celery by, but your Holy Trinity. And I like to peel my own shrimp, vein them. I use the shrimp heads as stock. Oh yeah.
So let's talk about New Orleans in terms of the Super Bowl. And I mean, everybody I think was
I'm
rooting.
not finished my cook.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead and keep on cooking there.
Football, the Saints lifted my spirits. I made a whole new dish called Breeze Bush.
We're gonna talk about that.
The only time a woman could ever root for a bush is when he has on a football shirt. Yeah, go baby. All right. But the most important thing about gumbo is not just the ingredients, but how you stir it up. You cannot make gumbo in 1 hour or 2 hours. It takes several hours. And the best way to serve it, before you get to the rice, is to let it cool down. And then you throw it on some rice. But what makes gumbo so delicious, in addition to the ingredients, is how you stir it up. And it's a process. So you cannot just throw it all in the pan and then come back and say, is it ready? Oh no. Between every major step, you have to take a break, take a sip. Iced tea for you. And you got to keep stirring and stirring because if you don't stir, it'll stick. And the reason why is gumbo was meant to keep us together through those weary years, those tears. It was meant to keep a people going. It was also meant to feed a large family because you often had the leftover, whether it was the leftover shrimp or the leftover turkey or the leftover andouille sausage or the leftover turtle, gator, bison. You can make gumbo with everything. But the most important thing about gumbo is the okra, because that brings you back to Africa. And it also brings you back here to America, and it connects you with your people and your culture. So I love cooking gumbo, but I am with Tabasco.
And so your family was a very large family?
Oh, my mother taught us all how to cook, even the boys. My brothers can cook better than most men I know.
How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I'm one of 9. I'm number 3. Cheryl, Sheila, Donna, Katie, Chad, Lisa, Demetri, Kevin, Zilda.
So can I move on?
We're a little Catholic.
I said that again?
We're a little Catholic.
We're going to talk about that too. But I want to sort of talk about Louisiana in terms of this high moment of sort of juxtaposing the victory for the Saints against Hurricane Katrina. And some of the coverage really did show that there's a lot of work that still needs to be done in the 9th Ward. We've seen right around that time the election of the first white mayor in 30 years, Michelangelo. Apparently there was an undercurrent where Ray Nagin accused the local media of not allowing the black candidates to get enough airtime, and apparently the white voters turned out en masse for Landreau, but the black voters sort of just quit the political process this time around, and other people are displaced still by Hurricane Katrina. So I was wondering if you could sort of is how do you sort of juxtapose? We found out just yesterday, for example, that the bridge, the police admitted that they covered up a bunch of murders, or a few murders of people trying to cross and get food. This just came out yesterday. How do you weigh all of this, the Hurricane Katrina, the aftermath, and what the Super Bowl victory means? How do you
Well,
weigh
there's
that
no
out?
question that the Saints, the victory by the New Orleans Saints, lifted our spirits. I mean, there's nobody in Louisiana, nobody on the Gulf Coast that did not root for the Who Dat team. I mean, it came to symbolize our own long journey and struggle in the aftermath of Katrina, trying to get back on our feet, to come back home, to rebuild. And some of you might not remember, but several of our fellow citizens died at the Superdome, waiting for their government to come and save them. 1,400 Americans died during the storm. 1,400 people did not have to die. Some of them simply were abandoned, many of them forgotten, some of them waited for days, my own family. Several members, it took days before I knew they were rescued. So when you talk about Hurricane Katrina and her evil twin, nasty sister who came 2 weeks later, Rita, you talk about a storm that caused great catastrophic damage across the state of Louisiana, and 200,000 homes destroyed, 80,000 businesses and schools and libraries. I mean, you name it, it was a total and complete failure of government. So the rebuilding process has been long, it's been difficult, and many families, including my own, they're still in the process of rebuilding. I mean, the roof is back up, but they're still trying to figure out how they can get, this and that replaced, because they have to get new plumbing, new piping, new electricity, you name it. I mean, they're starting from scratch. So the Saints was pretty uplifting. And I went home for Mardi Gras, my first Mardi Gras since the storm. And the reason why I wanted to wait, because I would not go home and celebrate until my family could get back home. Very important to me. Family is very important.
People didn't understand that weren't from Louisiana, as so the family connection. I mean, I know folks from Louisiana, and there was this thing where they just felt like they could not leave unless everybody could leave. You could not leave grandma, you couldn't leave auntie. Everybody was leaving, or nobody was leaving.
That in family is we all know about family, but even in my own family, my dad is 79, he was 75, and he wouldn't leave. He would never leave. He's only left the state twice in his life, once to serve his country in Korea, and when he was forced to leave because of Hurricane Katrina. But he didn't voluntarily go. I mean, my brothers tried to get him to go, my older sister tried to get him to go, but my dad had, one of my siblings, Sheila, was in an assisted living facility about a block away. And he could not rescue Sheila, and he refused to leave until he could get his daughter out of that facility. Unfortunately, our government would not rescue people in those facilities. So I had to go on national TV and give out her address, and the addresses of other people I knew who were stuck in nursing homes, senior citizens' homes. I'm not supposed to get angry anymore when I talk about Katrina, but it still bothers me that, I was told by FEMA officials, we used to call them federal employees missing in action. But I was told that they were not a priority because they were clearly trying to get the people off the streets and get the people out of the convention center and the Superdome. And so, but my dad wouldn't leave, and then my sister Ziola, who lived next door to my dad, wouldn't leave my daddy, which meant Ziola, her husband, and her child. So it was a whole package of people. They wouldn't leave because we're like the gumbo, we're like the root, we stick together. We don't split up. And so, to see people come back home and to celebrate, and they have a reason to celebrate and a reason to feel good. And let's talk about this mayoral election. Now, I'm getting controversial. First of all, I know the Landrews. I know Mitch Landrew. I ran Mary's first statewide campaign. She's our United States Senator. I'm not always proud of the votes that they take, but I know Mary and I know Mitch very well. Mitch is going to be a very good mayor for the city. I was just emailing and texting Ray Nagin the other day about his future. So I keep in touch with everybody. Oh, I'm not afraid. I've been known to text Al Gore, and you all know he invented all these tools. Internet confused blog and all of that. But the state of black leadership in New Orleans, my hometown, it's not the quality of leadership that came out during the days of Ernest Dutch Moriel, our first African-American mayor, Sidney Bartholomew, and others. As you all know, our Congressman, Mr. Jefferson, was indicted for having supposedly $90,000 in his freezer. As a result, we now have an Asian American as our member of Congress in the majority Black city. Now, 80% of the residents are Black, but many of the African American neighborhoods, not just the 9th Ward, but the 7th Ward, Gentilly, parts of Broadmoor, Gertown, there are still some neighborhoods that have not come back. And until those neighborhoods come back 100%, and people are back in their homes, we might not see another Black mayor for another 4 years or 8 years, or may not see another Black congressman. Now, when you have 6 African Americans running in an open primary, because we have open primaries in Louisiana, and there's not one choice or 2, but there's 5 or 6 choices, and you split the Black vote, well, of course.
Right.
But here's something that you all should know. Mitch received the overwhelming support of the Black vote. Mitch won every neighborhood and every precinct. The majority of African Americans who voted absentee, because like me, they wanted to go watch the game, they voted for Mitch too. Mitch has a track record. So before we try to put race in this equation, because we can put race in the equation, we can put race in just about every equation, you got to understand that the African-American voters in my hometown are sort of over just having a conversation about race. They're looking for results right now. Now, I do believe that Mitch will be challenged to keep his promises, his commitment to replace the police chief and to bring in someone who will not treat certain neighborhoods a lot different than the other neighborhoods. He has to continue to reform our education system. He has to continue to deal with blight and to ensure that people who have not returned home do not lose their property. That is so important, folks. Those of you who know anything about the South and land know that we have lost our property because we don't have successions, we don't have deeds to our property. We know we own it. Nobody else has owned the little shotgun house. But all of a sudden, it's been sitting there since Hurricane Katrina, and nobody's come back to claim it. So we have a lot of work to do, but we can't just say that this was an issue of Black versus white when it's really people are frustrated, they want to see good leadership, they want to see the renaissance that's taking place downtown and in the French Quarter. They want to see that renaissance take place across the city, in the Lower Ninth, in Gentilly, in Broadmoor, and all of the other places where you and I know people of color, poor people who live at the intersection of race and poverty want to just get back into their homes.
Thank you. We're going to go to the video in a second, the first video clip. But I first want to sort of ask you, how has your Catholic identity sort of shaped the policy matters that are most important to you? And sort of, I'm sure you've seen other well-known political figures, John Kerry, Geraldine Ferraro, other people sort of have to struggle with sort of the Catholic Church's social teachings and their own sort of political, the Democratic Party platform around issues that aren't resonant with the two. So how did you sort of work through your Catholic identity in terms of policy preferences?
Because first of all, I don't let anybody get in my face about what I believe. I love God. I've been a Christian all my life. I was raised to love God. I was raised to respect other people. I was raised to speak up. I was raised to believe that God made us all equal. I learned all of this in the Catholic Church. I grew up in a segregated Catholic church. I'll never forget when I used to tell my mom, can I go up front now? I'm like, shoot, the white people might get all the bread and the wine. Can I go up front? I just sit there and say, I don't think Jesus would mind if I go sit up. And I'll never forget when I made my first Holy Communion, I went straight to the top. I said, hey, now I'm in the club. Not discriminate against me. And I was moving up front before everybody else was. Going down, I said, then I cut back on my giving my nickel to a penny. I said, now until y'all start treating me better, I'm giving you a penny. At the Super Bowl all, you can imagine when I saw the Archbishop, I said, oh, boy, I can't afford the Archbishop. I know I have some disagreements. I have some fundamental disagreements with the Catholic Church. I have fundamental disagreements with the Democratic Party. I have fundamental disagreements sometimes with NAACP. Come on, I don't agree with everything the Catholic doctrine. I mean, I'm sure the Pope has, blogged me or tweeted me at some point and said, can you follow everything? No. You stand up for poor people, because that's what you're talking to. I'm going to fight for what's right, that's what you're talking. But I am not going to allow my church to tell me what I know to be a moral truth, that God made me equal, and God gave me free will. And so I love the church, and I love the Lord. And I know at times, my Archbishop down home, complained. There was an online poll about whether or not I should be a commencement speaker at Xavier University, which is predominantly black Catholic college and only in the country. And it was amazing. Blacks and whites alike went online and said, let's make Donna Archbishop. 24 hours, I'm like, ooh, wait, can you imagine the kind of bread I would serve? We're going to toast this. Some bread on it. And I tell them nuns, come on up front. When Jesus was really organizing, Jesus had some women. And when after the crucifixion, when the men were up in the upper room deciding where to go and how to hide, the sisters were there at the tomb. Okay, now that's not very we discuss the Bible. The Bible never made me inferior. The Bible did not make me inferior. I can tell y'all about Deborah. I can tell y'all about Esther. We can do a Bible course here. That line of women. I'm not afraid.
I was really excited on election night to be able to see in my time a black president, a black male president, and it was really nice to see my mom's reaction as well, because she grew up in the 60s and 70s where it was still kind of okay to be called, the N-word, or, on her birth certificate she was like a Negro, and she remembers her mother having stones and bricks thrown at her, and so it was really nice to see her feel kind of vindicated now that people could see that, there was an educated black person in the White House, and to be able to know that, Martin Luther King's dream had in some ways come true, not to the full extent of the dream, but the real steps for the progress were being made.
I did vote in the 2009 presidential elections, and I did vote for President Barack Obama.
At the time, he seemed like the best candidate. I agreed with most of what he had to say.
I did vote in the 2009 election, and I voted for President Obama.
I voted for him because of his qualifications. Although he had less experience than McCain, I still thought he would have been and is proved to be a better president.
His campaign, it reached out to the youth a lot, and he did a lot of kind of like grassroots, so it definitely included the youth a lot more, and I think it was the first time that we've really seen a candidate do that.
I think that the fact that so many youth got out to vote this time was the reason why it pushed him so far. I think mainly that's because he was focusing on education and really talking to them on the level that they would understand.
Thank you. So it's really interesting. I was looking at some data today, some polls that were showing that there's been a real drop-off in terms of young people's enthusiasm for Barack Obama as we switch to sort of talking about politics. Next to African Americans who voted up in the high 90s, like about 96% Barack Obama, young people, 18 to 29, were about second, up in the high 90s. But now their approval ratings, their sort of sense of warmth towards him is down in the high 50s or so. What is going on here? Why? I mean, one of the things that those of us who were sort of here earlier doing the walkthrough talked about is we watch these students, and we know these students, these are our students, and they all just seem to have the kind of weight on them as they talked about this and about their feelings about sort of in the past tense as if the hope has come and gone and not been realized. And so I'm wondering if you have a sense of what young people might be sort of, are they having sort of regrets about their enthusiasm for Barack Obama, and will we lose them for a generation or two because they're discouraged by their first real sort of political experience?
Well, first of all, I've seen some of those same polls, and I try to emphasize each and every week, especially to young people, you created the change, you created the dynamics that gave us this historical election in 2008, where we saw for the first time in my adult lifetime two qualified candidates, two superbly qualified candidates, a dynamic woman in Hillary Clinton, and of course a very superb and intelligent young man, Barack Obama, compete for my party's nomination. I never thought I would see this day. And it really was a very interesting period as a superdelegate who clearly for the past 10 years of my life, I've worked on the party's rules committee. I know that sounds sort of arcane in those schools. She's on the rules committee. I didn't think they made up rules. Well, yeah, we did. You know, those who write the rules not only know how to play the game, but they know how to win. And, you know, we understood that in order to get to this moment, we had to ensure that the rules were not stacked against women and minorities. And so the changes that we saw came about in the 2008 process should be the changes that we should continue to fight for. Let me tell you, right now in American politics, what we're witnessing is not buyer's remorse. No, that's not what's going on. I mean, what you're witnessing is the kind of voter anxiety and impatience that's driven largely by the economic recession. And for members of the minority community, and for poor Americans, low-income working Americans, this is not just the Great Recession. This has been the second depression because we've been faced with unemployment and lack of health care and opportunities for several quarters, several decades, several years in the making. This didn't turn around. This didn't happen just 2 years ago or 5 years ago or 8 years ago. It started happening long before. But Ronald Reagan started making tremendous cuts and programs that really impacted the quality of our lives. And so what I tell young people is that you stood in long lines. For what? To create lasting change. You went out there and registered voters to vote for the first time. Why? To create a new generation of public servants who will serve the people's interest and not special interests. If you sit down, if you stop playing, if you stop being involved in the game, we're going back to business as usual. And this will be business with a vengeance. And so let me encourage you, if you're upset that President Obama is taking too long to create change, President Obama has not been able to deliver on all of his goods, and trust me, I get upset every day on TV when they call him liberal, extremist. I'm like, you know what? Hey. I'm a liberal. I would have come in there and cut the two wars out. Told the rich that the tax cuts they receive over. I would have turned everybody to Washington, D.C. and ended some of the policies that I saw over the last administration. But this president is a lot cooler than I am. I have to tell you. Maybe that explains why he's much younger than me. And he is trying to do this in a way that doesn't really, you know, shake things up too quickly, too fast. But everyone must agree that when President Obama took office, we were losing 22,000 jobs a day. Now, it's still unacceptable that we're losing 45,000 a month, but we're not losing 22,000 a day, 700,000 a month. So the change is happening. But you all got to hold on. And you all need to, like, Tell the Tea Party folks. I had to tell people, I'm not going to get infected with their virus. Hate to me is not a winter.
So you see that as hate. This is what you think is at undergirding.
I don't like to, there's a reason why my lips are so thick. I like to talk. When President Bush came into office, and I'm not going to sit here and jump on Bush, all right? Because, I have his number and we talk when we have to. So yeah, I'm not afraid. When President Bush took office, this country had, as a result of the hard work that Bill Clinton and Al Gore did, this country had a projected $5.6 trillion surplus. In the first fiscal year, President Bush had about a $280 billion, surplus. So President Bush got there, and Dick Cheney, and he's recovering. I told you I'm Catholic, he's recovering. They got there and said, oh my God, cookies, let's start eating. Then we had tax cuts, and then we started the war, and then we started another war. And then they decided to put a prescription drug program. None of this was paid for. So when Barack Obama steps in, take the oath of office, what does he inherit? $280 billion? A $5.6 trillion? $10.2 trillion deficit. Projected $1 trillion deficit for years to come. And what do people want him to do? Clean up the Republican red ink right away. Well, you're in the middle of a recession. Your banking system is frozen. Your country's hemorrhaging jobs. So the president put forward what? A stimulus package to keep the safety net alive and to ensure that governors, like here in California and other places, didn't have to cut everybody so quickly, so soon. The bottom line is President Obama has been a successful president, and I don't care who will blog and tweet me because I'll tweet you back and I'll blog
you were saying he's been successful up to this point. So why haven't the Democrats been able to communicate that? Because I've seen things, like you say, they've been very successful in sort of, turning things around or stopping some of the hemorrhaging, but they're being accused of being, spenders when you just cited the fact that this is an inheritance.
Because we like to be intellectually honest. We don't know how to lie and bullshit and be emotional. Because we like to just be nice and say, well, according to the Journal of Medicine, 62% of bankruptcies could have been averted. Well, we just say, people, if they can't buy health insurance and they cannot afford to go to the doctor, they die. I mean, Republicans will sit there and say, you're going to kill grandma. And we have to sit there and say, no. Then we go back to our rational ways of communicating. The American people like a little red meat. Have you noticed that? We ain't giving up pork. You'll stew that, bake it, fry it, salt it, stuff it. We ain't giving up, okay? And I'm not going to give it up. But maybe during Lent. But we do a bad job of communicating our ideas and our policies. Margaret Coakley, who lost that seat in Massachusetts, all disagreed with her on all the issues, but she couldn't communicate. She was disconnected. I mean, the problem we have sometimes as Democrats is that I used to tell my candidates, can you use 5-cent words? Get off of being the smartest person in the room. I used to tell Al Gore, I don't care if you made all A's, act like you made some C's. I actually used to tell Al Gore something else. If somebody would have whipped your butt in 6th grade, you'd be a better man today. That's my answer to all these guys who don't like to fight. Somebody would have whipped your butt. Around me when I was a little kid, I used to tell Bone and Nick, I said, I'm going to beat you up behind. You'll be better men later, yes?
So let's talk about 2000.
That's definitely being a Democrat. Because I'm going to beat their butt. Don't y'all beat them right now.
Let's talk about the 2000 election, if you don't mind.
You want to go back that
I
far?
just want to, yeah, because, I mean, this is something that is
That's
important.
another emotional.
Yeah.
Why does man want to make me emotional? Let's talk about the one for the other
I'm
cause.
trying to, what I was hoping to sort of bring out was the fact that you, I mean, technically was the first African-American woman to, I mean, if you give Gore the popular vote, right, to win a presidential campaign. I mean, we had Shirley Chisholm run, Lenora Fulani, Carol Mosley Braun, but you actually,
Jesse Jackson.
I'm talking about black women now.
Oh, okay.
And you actually helped this man win the popular vote at the very least. And I just wonder what sort of stands out to you from the 2000 election? What sort of lingers or sort of, you know, it remains most on your mind about the 2000 election?
That it was stolen.
So given the 2000 election and the Supreme Court's role in the recent FEC ruling, I mean, can we say that we still have a representative democracy here? Can we tell our children that they have inherited a democracy?
Let me not just say it was stolen. It really was hijacked. I mean, come on. I know politics. I know campaigns. I've been involved in campaigns since I was a little kid. And when you go through 7 presidential campaigns, 56 congressional, 19 state and local, working in campaigns in 48 states, 2 more states that would become Miss USA without the bikini. I mean, I know politics, okay? And you know how to get out your votes. I mean, we all know there's a process. You target, and you know the percentage of people you need in each and every precinct in this country and county to get to the, you know, the magical 270 electoral votes. And God knows that we could have done a better job with targeting Duval County, which is Jacksonville. We could have put more resources in Leon County, which is Tallahassee. But the bottom line, at the end of the day, we had more people turn out to vote for Al Gore than George W. Bush. That was the bottom line, okay? Now, when you have a system that allows certain people to get to the polls and go straight to the ballot booth, the box, and vote, and then other people get stopped, get checked, get turned around. Even with all of those hurdles, we still had more people vote for Al Gore than George W. Bush. But at the end of the day, when you don't have enough people on the Supreme Court, okay. Now, I'm not the lawyer in the family. You all lawyer. Y'all go and figure out Bush versus Gore will ever be applied to another, you know, case in America. All right. But where are we today? Now the Supreme Court has basically said that corporations can be treated as individuals, and you can pour out every dime in your pocket if you are Avon or Walmart, and essentially buy up everything, you know, that you can afford. Our democracy is in jeopardy. It's in, you know, we already have a system by which, you know, people with more money are paid more attention to. That's not a dirty little secret. That's a secret that should be out, like Victoria's Secret. Everybody should know. Yeah, because, you know, you don't want to offend people with money. You know that they will communicate. You know they will speak up. You know they will write letters to the editors. That they will come down to the office, visit you, or speak up. But for low-income people, poor people, even middle-income people who work each and every day, who represents you? I mean, where's your voice? Who lobbies for your interests? And we're not at a disadvantage in this country unless you belong to the money interests in this country. You know, the rest of us, we're at a disadvantage, and we've got to understand that. That's why it's important who we send to Washington, D.C., and who we send to Sacramento and every place else. And that's why we have to get involved, that you have to get involved. You just can't sit around and complain that, oh, I don't like the way that person is doing. What's wrong with you? Now, I know why I won't run for office. I run my mouth too much. But what about you? It's your turn. It's your turn to serve. It's your turn to speak up. Your turn to tweet, to blog, and to really be involved. The Tea Party right now, they're the only game in town because they're organized. But why are they NAACP so long? This is an organization I believe in. But why did it take them so long to like call for a meeting with President Obama to talk about job creation in the black community? Why? Why are we waiting before we get mad? I told somebody over there, I don't need to drink no tea to get mad.
So now we're going to go to the second student clip.
I'm so glad you're so organized. Then we're going to talk to people in here.
Yes, we're going to have the microphones in the aisles. And
There's
people
always an
can walk
Oprah.
up and talk. So, yeah.
The reason why I think Obama is receiving so much criticism is mainly because people are trying to find an excuse for the underlying reason that they don't like him because he's black.
Just because we have a black president does not mean that it's gone. Some people ignorantly say that, there is no more racism, but that's completely false.
I think President Obama is getting a lot of criticism, not just because he's African American. It's mainly because everybody judges.
I absolutely think we'll see another black president after President Obama, because when he ran for the presidency, not only did he run for African Americans, but he voted for everyone of a multicultural background.
I think Obama made a pathway for other minorities to be president, because he did give us hope, and for a while we thought that it was impossible for a person of color to be president.
I agree too. I think anything is possible now, but it's not easier in any way. It's only going to take just as much work as winning this election took.
I think he really opened the door to a lot of people to show them that they can do anything like that, and not only will we see more African Americans running for the presidential seat, but we'll be seeing Latino Americans, maybe even some Arab Americans.
Honestly, I don't think race really has a whole lot to do with it anymore. I think that it's more about people's policy decisions and where they stand on certain issues.
I think the people who were racist against him for being an African American were racist against him before the election and the racist against him after the election. I don't think there's any kind of new racism being bred from, his, lack of success politically in his, first year as president.
I mean, those are some powerful observations by these students. And I wonder, if you look at African American political history and culture, whenever there's sort of been a giant leap forward, whether it's Jack Johnson becoming heavyweight champion, or Jackie Robinson, or going backward to the Reconstruction following slavery, Martin Luther King, the Civil Rights Movement, and the Ronald Reagan backlash. I mean, are we in the midst of a backlash, or is this student saying, the last student in particular, that this is nothing new, this is already here, and this is sort of speaking loudly, but, I'm wondering if you see this Tea Party phenomenon, these birthers, these people sort of questioning his citizenship. Do you think that there's an undercurrent of animus around race at work here?
Actually, I think one of the students who said that the same people who probably voted against him are the same people who are still against him. And if you look at the polls, and I have to analyze the polls because unfortunately when there's nothing else to sell on TV, we sell polls. And 37% of Americans have indicated that they will vote against the Democrats and Obama no matter what. That's the same hard 37% that we saw in the 2008 election. The key is independence. Independence are the key. And right now, the birthers, the Tea Party, and all of those who are, sort of re-energizing the Republican base, they're able to capture about a good solid 34% of the American people. They have not infiltrated independence. So President Obama still has a good, strong, steady base of support. He's at 49 to 52%, depending on the day of the poll. His base is still very much with him. 33% of people are solidly behind him. You can get up tomorrow morning and tell Michelle to put on a sleeveless dress and they'll still like him or whatever. Or not walk Bo across the street and, still be like. But there's about 32% of the American people who are for grabs. And that's the percentage of voters that we need to communicate what the president is trying to do. Now, the partisan divide in this country provide much of the backdrop of the anger. I mean, we have some hardened partisans in this country.
So do you think this would have been the same reaction to Hillary Clinton if she had become president?
Oh, absolutely yes. And let me tell you, sexism is the other dirty, nasty, bitter,
I see a whole lot of hands going in.
homophobia. I mean, we still got a lot of work to do in this country in correcting some of the ills of the past. Because they're still with us. But that's not to say that there's some element of, there's always going to be an element of racism. But is that the driver? No. That anger has to do a lot with the economy. People are pessimistic about their own future. They're worried, sick about job security. And part of it is that they want action now. What was Janet Jackson famous on? What have you done for me lately?
Right.
They don't feel the love.
Right.
And until they feel that, coming out of the White House and coming from the Democratic majority, then they're expressing a lot of this anger and animosity.
So how do you take the Scott Brown victory in Massachusetts and these other victories in of New Jersey and Virginia, Massachusetts? How do you? I mean, we've finally seen some bipartisan legislation get passed in the last 10 days or so, and he went on the Democratic side, and now the conservatives are very angry at him.
Calling him a traitor.
So what is going on here? Is this?
No, there's no question that the Democrats did a lousy job in communicating with their base in both Virginia and in New Jersey. This was not just a fallout of people voting against Obama.
So is this Rahm Emanuel's responsibility? Who's supposed to make sure this doesn't happen?
Well, look, I think we all should take responsibility, but the problem lies in having candidates who go out there at the last minute and, in the state of Virginia, where many people felt, well, when the leading gubernatorial candidate basically say, well, I don't agree with Obama. Well, if you agree with Obama, you support Obama, why would you show up to support this man who went out of his way to say he didn't like Obama when McDonnell, the Republican, was saying good things about Obama, appealing to independence. And so it's really about strategizing and positioning yourself when the Democrat is trying to appeal to the conservative base and not to independents. Independents are not right-wing or left-wing. They're moderate, they're centrist. You have to appeal to them by appealing to their common sense. And I think we did an awful job in Virginia. I also believe that, it matters the candidates we put before the voters. And John Corzine just really never, people thought that all he was doing is layering more and more taxes and cutting services. And they really didn't know which way he was going.
But the Democrats won District 23 upstate New York, and nobody remembers that the Democrats won a seat that hadn't been taken by a Democrat in a century. And we've forgotten that, but the big sort of earthquake of the election season is Ted Kennedy's seat. And I don't understand, again, this communication issue. Why haven't we made it clear that the Democrats did something unprecedented as well?
Well, we tried to, but the media narrative is one of, though the Democrats are in charge, and history suggests that the party in charge will pay a price for being in charge. And so the narrative is very difficult to get out factual information when the narrative has already been written that the Democrats are going to lose, they're going to lose. Well, here's another little dirty secret. All right, not to bore you guys with elections. Of course, I should start reading Cosmopolitan. Maybe I would have known Scott Brown had something. My bad. Well, I had to put that out.
That's okay.
I realized they covered it up for a reason. Okay. But in 1994, the year the Democrats lost control of the Congress when Bill Clinton was in, that was also the year that we had more than 50 Democrats that retired and move on to other things. And in 2006, when you saw a large number of Republicans retire, that enabled Democrats to pick up those seats. So the dirty little secret about American politics is that incumbents always win, or at least 85% of the time. Even when Republicans in 2008, when they were losing at the national level, 85% of them, 85% of Republicans running for re-election won their re-election. It was the open seats where 60% of those seats went to Democrats. So it's about keeping retirements down. Right now, 1/10 of the Republican caucus, 18 Republicans have announced their retirements from the House, 13 Democrats. Now in the Senate, we've had quite a few senators to retire, but yet there are more Republicans retiring. So Democrats need to figure out how to suit up a little better. Suit up. I always say, man up, woman up, put your big panties on, your little, just. But I don't run a day-to-day operation. You know, the people who manage the president's campaign, they run the day-to-day operation. But I have to tell you a little bit about myself, and I don't really share all my secrets because I'm trying to keep some of my secrets, unlike Victoria. And I've been representing, I've been tweeting, I've been fighting. Now, where's your press release? Come on now. Come on. And I don't know, I mean, an hour ago when I was driving over here, I still hadn't seen one. I'm like, how long does it take y'all to get a press release out? Now, Michael Steele, because you know I look at everybody, I look up the other side. Michael Steele has put out his press release. He's the Republican National Committee chair. He put out the press release before the president even, the meeting was adjourned. He put out a press release. This wasn't nothing but a show.
And he probably said it just like that, too.
You'd be surprised I defend Michael sometimes. I feel sorry for him. This little elephant went, wee, went all the way. I feel sorry for him.
So you don't, I mean, Bill Clinton recently said that if the economy makes a little bit of progress, he doesn't anticipate, this landslide or that the Democrats will lose the House, as some others have projected that they think the Democrats are going to lose the House. You don't think the Democrats are going to lose the House?
I agree with Bill Clinton. I pray for his recovery too. I agree with President Clinton. I don't believe the bloodshed, the landslide will occur. But then again, the pessimism, all this self-fulfilling prophecy, all of this. I mean, Evan Bayh had $13 million in the bank. He was up 20 points. I understand what the point of mine is. Personal reasons, the house is broken, dysfunctions. But you're like, 13 million in the bank. If I had 13 million in the bank, I would tell it, come on, try me, come on. I know people with 3 million in the bank, $300,000, $3,000 would take that fight on. People don't take it on. So it's about what it's about the gut. I'm going to tell you something. I would go out there and fight against a Republican for $300. Because you're worth it. Your health care is worth it. Ending those 2 wars is worth it. Protecting my right to choose is worth it. Protecting affirmative action is worth it. You mean we're going to sit back and give the power back to the same people who put us in this bad shape? Come on. Are you that mad at President Obama and Speaker Pelosi and Nancy Reid that you really want to bring back the last group of people? Oh, come on. Now, if that's what you're up to, I'm going home and make some real gumbo. So talk about it, too.
So for the young, what I want to do, so that's a couple of questions. So last clip, and then we're going to ask people to come to the mic. So we'll be wrapping up
You're
here.
in school tomorrow. I don't want to keep y'all on.
But to the young women sitting out in this audience who sort of now, if they didn't know about you before, has looked at your resume and seen the work that you've done. If you would advise her in terms of her interest in politics or in a career similar to your own as a strategist, how would you encourage her to get her foot in the door? You ended up running Al Gore's campaign, Vernon Jordan with Martin Luther King's holiday. How do you go from a little girl in Louisiana to the corridors of power?
Because I was not a child who waited. I was not a child who waited for a letter or permission. I was a child who wanted to stir it up. I was never one of those kids who wanted to play with Barbie. And the only reason why I wanted to play with Ken, because I wanted to see what was going on. You know what I'm saying? Okay? And so, for me, politics is where the action was. Now, man, you know, I grew up, I'm 50. All good too, baby, because I was like a cow on a high tin roof. Y'all governor saw me the other day and wanted to know where my wrinkles was. I felt like looking at him saying, well, I let him get up close. I didn't know this was real. I'm still one. I mean, what are you waiting for? What are you waiting for? For me, it was my grandmother who taught me about Harriet Tubman. I said, I want to be like her. Yeah, I wanted a pistol too, because if you ran back, I would shoot you. I wanted to be like Sojourner Truth. I wanted to be like Ida B. Wells and Mary McLeod Bethune. But I knew my history enough to tell that to my grandmother. You all need to get a sense of history. You need to know exactly who Shirley Chisholm was and Barbara Jordan. You need to know about Maxine Waters and Eleanor Holmes Norton. They're not dead, they're alive. You need to start deciding now if you want to make history or just wait for history to be made. When I sat on that presidential platform, watching the President of the United States be inaugurated, all I could think of was, I said, you know, Dr. King was out there. Fannie Lou Hamer was out there. Malcolm X. I just kept thinking of all the people. And when Aretha started singing, all of a sudden, the birds started picking up, and I was like saying, that's Nat Turner. Oh, I started telling, I said, oh, Lord, I could see the spirits. They were all there. But where are you? And what are you waiting for? I was a kid born to two working class parents. My mother was a maid, my father a janitor. I'm proud because they worked every day. We didn't have health insurance. We were all born at Charity Hospital. It's all right. My mother died at 52 because she had no health insurance. That's why I'm going to fight every day. That's why I got up this morning. I didn't get up because I want to get up. Now, you know when you're 50, you really want to lay down. Even when you're alone, you want to lay down. I can at least say, just like I can tell people I helped make King's birthday a holiday. I helped the first black man who ran for the president back in 1984, Jack. I don't ever want history to record me that I was sleeping when I could have been standing, when I could have been marching, when I could have been fighting. Yes, let me tell you about your dues. You owe it to Harriet. You owe it to Rosa Parks. You owe it to everyone who came before us to do something with your lives. And not just worry about, am I going to make money, am I going to be on TV? All that happened to me, yeah. When they called me to be on TV, I thought it was, you know, for what? What did I do? And now, I go out there every day. They don't just call me when they talk about black stuff either.
Right. I was wondering about the questions I had that I didn't ask.
And
was that fact?
let me just say, hold on, baby. I'm not saying this. And then I'll take everybody's question. I'm going to say this. To see y'all open up Pandora's box. I'm feeling good. I love it when they ask me about Pakistan, the nuclear problem in Iran, North Korea. I like to talk about the dollar, the value of the dollar, the stock market, the bank, 20 banks have foreclosed. I sat down with Secretary Guyton the other day. You should have seen me quiz him about the economy and why distressed communities are getting less money than communities that were already money. Hell, I sit and read the newspaper, even with my little glasses on now. But I love the fact that they cannot just call me when there's a quote-unquote a beer summit. Now, I want to be involved in those too, because I got something to say about race. I want to be involved in gender discussions. There's a lot of gender bias out here. I want to be involved anytime there's a conversation to be had, but I do not wish to be stereotyped as just called down because we got a black problem. Oh, hell no. I've been known to tell them no.